Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I decided to address two questions that continue to puzzle me. What can literature do to dismantle structures of violence? And why do we still need the peace movement? My interest in peace and ecological issues and dismantling structures of violence stems from my own experiences. Until I moved away from home at the age of 15, I lived in a household where the war traumas of men who had fought on the front line during the Second World War and during the Lapland War were daily concrete presence. Men who had been mentally broken at the front vented their anxiety and rage at home. Their rage affected on humans, other species, and surrounding nature. The operating models of aggression and violence internalized in wars, intertwined with silence, passes from generation to the next. Today, the results of these operating models can be seen as clear-cut forest, drained swamps, open-pit mines, and polluted waterways. Traumas left by wars are familiar to many Finns. Having lived through this, I joined the anti-Vietnam War movement while still in the secondary school, and later became involved in the peace and environmental movements during the high school. Jean-Paul Sartre, the philosopher that survived the horrors of the Second World War, demanded his contemporaries, especially authors, to take a look in the mirror. He demands committed literature, not to tame the authors to be servants of political tendencies, but to get people encounter the total degradation of the Western civilization and the complete decadence of enlightenment in the heart of Europe after Auschwitz with honesty. When we look at the world today, we can ask how far we have got from the post-war decadence. In 1955, when the United States had destroyed 10 years previously the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki with nuclear bombs in Japan, the philosopher Bernard Russell published a petition against nuclear weapons. The most famous person who signed the manifest was the physicist Albert Einstein. The central part of the petition is this. Here then is the problem which we present to you, stark, dreadful, and inescapable. Shall we put an end to the human race, or shall mankind renounce war? When Finland joined the world's biggest military alliance, NATO, in 2023, our leaders emphasized that the deterrence of NATO is precisely based on nuclear weapons. Now that Finland is a member of NATO and the placement of the nuclear weapons is not considered impossible anymore, the politicians have started to use the term nuclear shield. The balance of terror maintained by the shield does not take into account the fact that in nuclear war, entire nations, animals, forests, water systems, and the air we breathe will be destroyed. The Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons of the United Nations that came into effect in January 2021 aims at that. None of the countries that have nuclear weapons or is a member of NATO, Finland included, has not signed the agreement. United States, Israel, Russia, Pakistan, India, even leaders in Germany, France, and Great Britain have recently raised the possibility of limited nuclear war. We all know that the nuclear war would cause radical climate disruption and global starvation. It will be the end of civilization. The only way to prevent nuclear war is the complete destruction of nuclear weapons. US Republican President Eisenhower warned as early as 1961 about the dangers of the growth of the military-industrial complex. He meant the military, political, and economic power are strongly intertwined together and form a threat to peace and democracy. We have ended up living in the time that President Eisenhower warned us about. Militarization and everyday talk about security and defense is also stripping away democracy and giving power to military forces. Now I have to take a little bit of water. According to the war researcher Susanna Hast, violence originates in language. It is conceptualized, strategized, and initiated through discourse. The use of terminology such as referring war as a conflict, fight against terrorism, or the liberalization of territories serves to obscure the true nature of events. Once war has brought into everyday language, fighting becomes a natural extension of our words. We also live in a time when the world order created after World War II is falling apart. World's leading powers are breaking away or have broken away from democracy. We can ask ourselves what we have learned from the wars, what we have learned from history in general. All actions we do here on our planet have a global impact, and we need global institutions to solve these. Global institutions which are currently treated with disintegration by many powers. Acting in peace and ecological movement is nowadays seen as an idealistic delirium from the past. In fact, the peace and the ecological movement might be needed more than ever. They are needed to remind that there is a choice for militarism. There is a choice for vast ecological destruction. There is a choice for eco-wars. These movements are needed to demand following and developing international justice, promoting and building of demilitarized zones and destruction of nuclear weapons. These movements are needed to demand maintaining the belief in world peace and non-violent actions in these movements. We need also peace and ecological movement for building the kind of communication with respect the democratic society. It is good to remember that every person's contribution to the peace movement and ecological action that will help in this process is meaningful. Because many of the changes start from small movements, tiny streams that form a big river. For example, the civil movement against the Vietnam War, the courage to resist one of the biggest colonialist powers of country's pacifistic movement have changed the course of history in an important way. Today, people's movements such as Elokapina, the Finnish branch of Extinction Rebellion, the global climate movement, environmental and peace movements, Stop Ecocide movement, sustainability elders for the planet, and feminist scholars of militarism act as a counterforce to destruction. If we take into account that the current emission from warfare and the militaristic industrial complex are among the most destructive to the environment in the world, as a committed author, I aim to uncover the roots of violence and illustrate how literature can actively contribute to finding a counterbalance. My focus is on reshaping the narrative of a human being who champions militarism and survival of fittest, reconceptualizing their existence within the broader web of life that includes all species. Although the setting of my novels used to be historical, their writing has been motivated by burning questions of today. How to share experience of violence and exclusion through literature. How to rewrite man and his place in the nature and among other species. How to find a living connection to the layers of our existence that human-centered modernism had tragically lost over the past centuries. How to blend the literature narrative to reveal a simple truth that we have stubbornly denied for a long time. Nature does not need man, but man needs nature to live. As an art historian, Anita Seppä emphasized, we live at a pivotal moment in history when the power to redefine our future still lies within our grasp. The green transition is not sustainable if we do not swiftly connect environmental efforts with long-term peace building and diplomacy. This endeavour necessitates radically new ways of envisioning the world within and around us. Literature and arts play a critical role in this essential reimagining process. The time to start this transformative work is today. Ladies and gentlemen, peace is power. Thank you.